happy Thanksgiving. Here's my presentation. I chose the topic transgender civil rights for my design project. My goal is to focus on the importance of legal and personal forms of identification by highlighting to a largely non-transgender audience both how difficult and how affirmative identity construction is. So taking a step back a little, the project is a casual training forum held as part of a month-long LGBTQ celebration at a liberal church, such as Unitarian Universalist, or just a community gathering space even. This particular event would be held in a rec room that sort of resembles someone's living room. There'd be couches, armchairs, cushions, beanbags, as well as functional furniture like small tables and bookshelves. The room would be small enough to feel pretty casual, but large enough that people can divide up into groups, move furniture around, and it'd be decorated a little bit as part of the month-long celebration. There'd be art on the walls created by LGBTQ artists. There'd be posters and flyers for the other events flying around, and there'd be music playing in the background by LGBTQ musicians and preferably local artists, so not someone like Tegan and Sarah. There'd be safe space posters hanging in a prominent place, along with a table of LGBTQ resources, and it's important that none of these things look out of place. They may have been added to the space just for this month, but they should, be integrated well, and especially the safe space posters and the pamphlet resources should probably stay there after the month-long celebration is over. On the actual training forum, so the audience would be about 25 people, hopefully with a diversity of races, ethnicities, sexes, ages, and abilities. I have no way to control for this, obviously, and I wouldn't try too hard to target a wide group. I wouldn't try to get a diversity of people because it's not the point of the event, but I definitely advertise it in a variety of locations and try to get as big of an audience as possible and reach as many people with the idea. Attendees wouldn't be required to be members of the church, but they likely would be, since that's the easiest way for them to learn about the event. And it's kid friendly, and then it doesn't include any adult topics, and so children and teenagers are welcome. But it would be noted that the topic might not be that engaging for them, and there wouldn't be somewhere they can just play instead of participating. So if they want to come along, or if their parents want to bring them, that's great. They just need to know that ahead of time. I think the forum would be most effective when it targets non-LGBTQ identified people, and specifically non-trans people. However, there are parts of the event where hearing the perspectives of transgender people would be really valuable, and obviously it's their experiences that we're discussing, and so I would seek out a mix of people from both groups and definitely have them be a part of the event and a part of those participating. So when people arrive at the training forum, they're invited to sit down somewhere comfortable in the room, introduce themselves to people, whatever they want to do early on. And there's going to be paper and markers scattered around, and so they're tasked with making a name tag for themselves, the kind that you hang on a string around your neck, not the kind you stick to your shirt. So the front of the name tag will have the name they want to be called, and then their preferred pronouns, and that'll be displayed for everyone to see and respect and use. There'll be flyers lying around for them to refer to so that they know maybe what different pronouns there are, how to use those in case that's something they haven't encountered before. And they can take those flyers with them, just like a list of basic tips. Then on the back of their name tag, they're going to write down a memory of a time they transgressed gender roles. And they're invited to keep this memory in mind throughout the training, consider what it represents for them and for society. It's sort of meant as a way for the non-trans people at the event to relate to or understand what being trans is like without trivializing that experience or reducing it to a single event, like taking a dance class instead of trying out for the baseball team. It's sort of a way to engage with that experience and begin to understand what it feels like and how their own experiences are similar while still recognizing that there is a vast world of difference between the two. And the trans people at the event will also complete that activity because no one's going to know who's trans unless they choose to say so. And then later on, when they're in smaller groups, the people can compare the memories they wrote down with each other and see how their experiences are similar and different. So once everyone has arrived and had time to complete their name tag, an event organizer and a representative of the church will thank everyone for coming, explain the purpose of the event as well as the month-long celebration as a whole, introduce the space they're in, and then point out some of the textual and human resources available if anyone has questions regarding the specific event or future activities or LGBTQ topics or really anything else. And then someone who identifies as transgender, or just someone that isn't cisgender, will talk for a few minutes about a topic of their choice that's relevant in some way. This might be their coming out story, or an experience they had with gender, or their thoughts on access to accurate identification, or anything else really. After that, featured speakers, the people at the event will be divided off into small groups of like 3 to 5 people, depending how many are there, and hopefully that'll be done randomly by counting out numbers or having a little color marked on their name tag, whatever would be done ahead of time to figure out how to divide the groups up. Once they're in the groups, they'll spend about 10 minutes total introducing themselves and sharing memories that they wrote down, as well as thoughts or experiences on gender that they might have. And then they're going to start another craft project using the supplies that are already out on the tables. So they're going to create a simple ID card that'll have their name, or I should say a name, a sex, and then pictures that they'll draw of themselves, like a little stick figure drawing. And that's supposed to represent something like a driver's license, essentially. However, the information on the ID card will deliberately not match. So they might have a female-coded name and a feminine appearance in the drawing, but the sex would say male, for example. And these can be pretty accurate to the individuals, or they can be totally fictionalized. So they can choose which qualities of themselves to alter. They can pick them randomly by rolling a dice, drawing options from a hat. All of that will be available to them, and they can choose how to go about selecting those qualities. The event facilitators will move around the groups during this time, answer questions, provide assistance, and then once everyone has completed their ID cards, they'll share them with the others, discuss the choices they made, and then already what some of their thoughts are regarding gender and how society views gender. As a sort of transition period, there'll be another featured speaker who'll talk for a few minutes, another person who isn't cisgender. And then the next activity, still within their small groups, is to develop 1-minute skits based on the identity card personas and including the physical ID cards they've made. It's up to the individual groups what to represent with their skits, what they want to act out or portray, as long as it includes the ID card. So an example would be an attempt to change the sex on their ID card to match their appearance, or to take a new photo for their ID dressed in a way that doesn't represent what society expects them to look like. They could, frame an encounter with someone where they're presenting their ID and show, the difference between a negative rude encounter and a positive respectful one, or the difference between someone with a non-matching ID and how they're treated, and then someone else's treatment with one that does match. The one thing to emphasize would be that the skits not be overly emotional, so they should focus on daily experiences that someone might have and play off the frustration of that, rather than something more melodramatic. And after they've had enough time to develop their skits and practice them, which shouldn't take very long, they're very short, very informal, they'll perform them for the entire room. And again, this will be pretty low pressure. They're encouraged to be creative, but they can also just read lines from a page if that's what they feel best doing. And they can, get up and perform on one side of the room or just stay where they are. And then after the performances are done, there'll be a third featured speaker who will again address the room about a topic of their choice as another little transition period. After that, there'll be an open discussion between everyone there about what was learned and discussed, what questions they might have. And this isn't going to be, like a question and answer directed at the event facilitators or the speakers, but like really incorporate the room as a whole, and it might be guided to allow everyone the chance to speak, but for the most part it's going to flow naturally. At the end, the event facilitators will thank everyone for coming, reiterate all the stuff they said at the beginning, and let everyone go. If they want to keep their name tags or ID cards, they can, and those who don't want to can contribute them to a collage to be stapled up on the wall as part of the month-long art display. So that's my design idea. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me with feedback, whatever you want to do. Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving again.